I'm Ted Meyer in Los Angeles, California, and I am with.
Mustafa Rfat. I am based here in St. Louis.
I've been reading about your history, so there's so many things to talk about. You're a patient, you have a disability, but I'm saying those first, but they're not really that important for who you are. You're a refugee from Iraq. There's just so much in the mix with you. So why don't you talk a little bit about your medical history, what's going on with you, and how you landed up in the States.
Yeah, thank you. This is really an honor to be with you and sharing my story. So, I have ankylosing spondylitis, a form of autoimmune disorder that usually targets individual during their teenage time. It restricts your mobility, especially if you don't have access to medicine, which was the case in Iraq, especially after the war, 2005, 2006, during the highest point of the sectarian war in Iraq. We did not have medical infrastructure, doctors, medications. So it was very painful to live with ankylosing spondylitis without access to medical care. And on top of that, you're living in war.
How is your condition now? Are you mobile? Are you using a wheelchair? Can you walk?
I am mobile. The discs between the bones are gone, so I can't straight my back, but I can walk fine. It's difficult to walk long distance.
So how did you make it out of Iraq? How did you land up in St. Louis?
I left Iraq in the beginning of 2010 or mid 2010. I was a refugee in Turkey. It was very, very painful process. I mean, the refugee journey is very difficult because you're forced to leave your home. You're forced to give away all your rights, your identities that you are a brother, you are a father, you are a valued community member, and you lose all these privileges. You're entering a new world, a world that is uncertain, that you don't know what's next for you, that you will be here for 10 years or more. And it's very difficult to live in a country that you don't have rights. So anyone can attack you or abuse you or do anything. Unfortunately, you are like third, fourth citizen. I mean, you are basically not citizen actually.
Mhm.
So you have very, very limited rights. And adding the element of disability on top of it, it makes things very complex, and you are extrovert vulnerable. You need medical health, you need the community that you relied on that helped you connect with doctors, that helped you go to school, that helped you with the things that you really needed to continue your daily activities. It's all gone. And I left Iraq by myself, which was very, very difficult. I was lucky that I was accepted to come to the US. I resettled in Mobile, Alabama. I was like, yes, this is the end of my refugee time. It was also a beginning of a very difficult journey because you are a refugee, you are a person with disabilities, and there are, unfortunately, like the way the policies, the systems are built without thinking about your needs, your that you will be entering education or healthcare or other programs. So it was very challenging.
Having a disability, especially a mobility issue, is hard enough for anybody. You had some people helping you, and through, I don't know if it was what U.S. agency, but you asked them about finding employment. And then you said they responded, oh, you'll probably just apply for assistance. And you felt like this was slamming a door in your face. And since coming to the States, you've gotten a master's, you've really excelled. But just because you had mobility issues, people discounted you and just told you to go on public assistance, be on the dole. Why even try to better your life? I mean, that's something that I think happens to a lot of people with disabilities. They're just discounted. And you had, on top of that, learning a new culture, learning your way around the system, and whatever. I'm assuming there was some pushback of a Muslim landing in Alabama. I don't know, maybe you can surprise me with stories of being welcomed and accepted there. But let's just talk about this idea of, as a refugee, being told, just get on the dole. Don't even try to better yourself.
It was really heartbreaking at every step I took to tell people, like, look, I can learn, I am able to work, do things. Yes, I have disabilities, but that's a strength that gives me a tool to really understand people. I'm a part of a community that, um, first of all, I'm very proud of. And second of all, it gives me the tool to understand people, to advocate, to so a lot of things. The word that ableism that comes to my mind when thinking about my journey and how when I disclosed that I am a person with disabilities, I am a refugee, that these thoughts comes to people's minds that to devalue my experience, my strength, my what I can contribute to society. So I had to push against because I was like, no, this is not who I am. I'm not going to stay on welfare. I'm going back to school. It was not easy journey. I applied for a scholarship. This was in West Virginia. As a person with disabilities, I was qualified and I they asked me to take an exam. So I took the exam, and while reading these questions, I realized that these questions are designed for high school students, not someone who recently came to the US, who doesn't have that history, that culture background. I know I failed the test, and failing the test meant that you are not going to get the scholarship. However, I was like, I can't just let it go. This scholarship is my hope to get my bachelor degree because my teaching degree was not accepted in the US. So I basically had to restart everything from zero. So I asked my friend to give me a word that every college students learn when they go to school. He said, well, mitochondria in biology, every, you know, student goes to college, have to learn mitochondria.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I learned how to write it, I know how to spell it. So I went to get the result after 10 days. I knocked on the door and the social worker welcomed me and I told her, listen, I did not come here to for you to tell me, well, you failed the test, that we can't help you. It seems like you will not be able to complete your a bachelor. I was like, I'm here to give you a very short test to help you understand what I went through when you gave me the test. She was surprised and she's like, okay. And I told her I'm gonna give you a word. If you can spell it for me, if you can tell me the meaning, uh, then I will just leave. I don't need any help from you. And then she said, okay. So I gave her the word. She couldn't spell it. She couldn't tell me the meaning. And I was like, listen, I did not come here to embarrass you, but I'm just begging you to understand my situation. Like, look, you went to college, you're a native English speaker, you have a master degree, so you were exposed to these informations. But the test you gave me, I was not exposed to it. So it's really not testing my ability to attend college. And she was surprised and she said, well, you really have a valid point. So she discussed it with her supervisor, and they gave me the scholarship with the condition that I have to pass every semester successfully. And guess what? I finished my bachelor with 3.8 GPA. I was the top students in my cohort. So this is just an example of how the intersecting of refugee identity with disability identity, creating a situation and it really making difficult for you to access essential resources for you to pursue your degree, become, self-sufficient and really contribute back to your society.
We've been talking to a lot of patients and caregivers or doctor family members and how they have learned things from their patients, how the illness or tough situation that one person goes through, it's really collaborative. And this is a perfect example of you saying to somebody, you're missing the big picture of me and my humanity. This is a perfect example of you teaching the people around you about your life and what they're missing by not seeing the big picture.
Most definitely. And then, in fact, that social worker, like, she soon realized that this system is really oppressing the most marginalized member of society, refugees with disabilities. And she advocated to eliminating that test for refugees because she knows that test is really not valid. One thing with refugees with disabilities is that so oftentimes they are actually left behind. It's very difficult to take that unknown journey that you don't know what will happen. So that uncertainty really makes refugees with disabilities stay and die oftentimes because it's very difficult. And in fact, many family members are just like, we can't really help you. So they stay back. And there are really a few that really take this long, um, painstaking journey. You rarely think that I want to seek refugees status to see if I can find a good medical treatment. Your main thing is for yourself is that I need to reach safety because you are fleeing war, you are fleeing unjust uh, prosecution that your chance of dying because of the terrorist groups, because of whatever political situation that is going on. Um, and, and for me, it was very difficult, really like waiting until the last moment that that you are against absolute, like, this is the most, like, you will be killed basically. And then you make this difficult journey to leave Iraq. I was lucky that I was like assisted during this process, so I did not have to like walk long journeys. But most refugees have to walk like long journeys. I sought refuge in the Turkish capital in Ankara. So the first thing is to go to the UN. I mean, you are asylum seeker at that point, and then you seek to get a refugee status. Um,
Did you speak English at this point?
no, when I came to the US, I barely could speak a couple of words.
In the States, there's this big discussion of immigrants and refugees, and I tend to be of the belief that if people make it here from far away, those are the people that we want. Can you sort of speak to that? I mean, you're the perfect example of somebody that got here and just excelled. You're not a drag on society. Maybe you could talk about getting here and having a world open to you in spite of the disability?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this is a really important question. Refugees, when they come to the United States, it's against all the odds, against not knowing English, against not knowing the culture. With refugees, what is different is that, back home, you did not prepare for 5, 10 years to learn English, to learn American culture. So you come here with nothing. Everything is starting from zero for you. For example, in St. Louis, Bosnians are a great examples. Husky Turks are a great examples of how they are building St. Louis. Without them, really, like we lose the entire city of St. Louis because they are the one who are the doctors, who are the restaurant owners, who are the grocery owners, who are the professors. In my experience, despite consistently being told that I can't attend school, that I should not be, working, that it's going to be difficult, that I'm going to lose my benefits, was able to get my bachelor degree in social work. I want to get a master degree in social work and then a master degree in public administration. And along this journey, I was consistently an active member of my community, helping people with disabilities, helping refugees. So along this journey, I did not only help myself, but really look around me and how I can really help my community. A part of what I think, like oftentimes what people miss is that, oh, you are a refugee, you experienced a lot of trauma, and the story ends there. But I think the story continues that you build on that trauma, on that hardship that you faced. Like soon realize that I'm a part of a big community, people with disabilities, that I was able to connect with these programs, that I was able to build friendship with other people with disabilities. Together, we are advocating for better education for people with disabilities. We are advocating for better healthcare, for better employment. So you really become a part of this bigger stories in the United States that is striving to for equity, that is trying to make sure no one is left behind.
I don't think people in the States have a real view of what Iraq was like before the war. I don't think we have a clear view of what it's like since then or what the government's doing. Is there any support for people with disabilities?
No, unfortunately, in Iraq, there is absolutely nothing for people with disabilities. I mean, your biggest asset, being a person with disabilities in Iraq, is your family, is your like immediate community, your neighbors. But beyond that, there is nothing from the government. With disabilities, it's one of these unique identities. There is really nothing good inherently by associating yourself with being a person with disabilities. Because in our culture, being a person with disabilities meant you are weak, you are in value, especially for a man. I mean, comparing to the US, being a person with disabilities is an important identity that you are associating yourself with a very I mean, it's the largest minority group in the United States, that you have rights. You have ADA, Section 504, and other policies protecting you. You have many programs, vacation rehabilitation services, and other independent livings, and other programs that are designed to help you. So it really helps you to develop that disability identity. But back in Iraq, absolutely no. You rarely see a person saying that I'm a person with disabilities, despite like, having these like visible disabilities, for example, using wheelchair or other things.
Would you ever think of going back and trying to build community there or teach other people how to build community there?
So one of my research agenda is to conduct research on people with disabilities in Iraq, really build that aspect that is absolutely missing in Iraq.
Why don't you talk a little bit about starting a new life with nobody knowing who you were before?
Yes, absolutely. I think one thing really influenced my experience was that I was an interpreter back in a refugee camp in Turkey. So that so I speak Turkish and I speak Arabic. So they appointed me to be an interpreter. And while interpreting, the stories of refugees with disabilities really resonated with me. Every time when they revealed the difficulties that they went through, that was a source of empowerment for me. That I promised myself that if I ever get a chance to hold a power or to be able, like if I ever get to resettle, that I will dedicate my time to advocate for the most marginalized community members, among them refugees with disabilities. And that really, that new mindset helped me always seek opportunities to better myself and better my community. It really gives me a joy. It gives me a sense of purpose that I want to continue. I want to do a research. I want to make sure that the stories of people with disabilities, the stories of refugees are heard and heard in an accurate way because oftentimes we are bombarded by ableism, we are bombarded by prejudice, bias, that we are unvalued individuals in the community, where in fact, many of us, unfortunately, there are so many people with disabilities and refugees don't get the chance. Again, going back to my story, that I consistently pushed against the system that is unjust and made sure that I get the resources that I need to not rely on government support, to make sure that I'm self-sufficient. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that ability or don't get the chance to 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 get the resources. Again, like I hope my story that really help people rethink their program, the policies, the whatever power they have over anything that they can think um, about the most marginalized members of society. There are many, many refugees, especially refugees with disabilities, with great stories, good and bad, in my opinion, because although a few of us now are able to, um, you know, get a PhD, like for example, in a prestige university, in fact, the majority of us are stuck at home, are told that you can't work. The only thing available for you is supplemental security income, $600, $700 a month, and you have to manage life with it. And we're in reality that these are the individuals who have big dreams. They don't only want to help themselves and their immediate family. Almost all of them have an ambition to give back. I mean, in my research, the last one that I conducted, interviews with 40 refugees with disabilities who have recently been resettled in the US. Almost all of them expressed ambitions to get an education, to get in skill, and give back to their community.
In the United States, we've come to expect that veterans coming back from Iraq might have post-traumatic stress syndrome. I've never really heard anybody talk about refugees from Iraq who had to face the daily bombing I don't know your specific situation, but I'm sure you're dealing with a lot of people that have very similar memories as the soldiers and the same bombings, and you hear a loud noise, you hear a car backfire, you worry who's coming to your door.
Really, like the example of Iraq, yes, if you are probably a soldier that you served a year and left Iraq. But for many of us, for example, I I was like, I think 13 when the war started, something like that. And I lived for many, many years through the bombings, through um, losing family members, through living in a sectarian war that you really were stuck at home because if you did not know if you leave your home that you will be coming back because just based on your name, just based on your religion affiliation, you could have been killed. And really that happened. It's not just the stories that we hear, it's we lived it. Really, the mental health and especially trauma is a reality that that we live through that really continues to haunt us. With the trauma, I feel like there is you make connections with other people. Like, for example, people, when I talk with refugees from Syria, although I did not live in Syria, just going through war and sharing your stories with them, it just feels like you lived together for many years and you lived the war together. And that's solidarity is really a form of medicine that you learn from each other, um, that you help each other, that you grow to in many instances you become aware of yourself, that aware of your your psychic, your mental well-being. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a reality that we live with every day.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me. And it's just everything you've achieved is so fantastic and such a testament to you. And
Thank you.
I'm just so impressed by all of it.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you for hosting me. It's really an honor to be here to share my story. I hope the audience will learn something new about people with disabilities and refugees. So thank you.